The first time Matthew looked at me, Jason laughed loud enough for the whole driveway to hear and said, "Don't stare too hard, Emily. Married men don't count." He said it like a joke, but everyone turned. Matthew stopped with a cardboard box in his arms. Lauren, his wife, looked from me to him with a polite little smile, and I stood on my parents' porch wishing the concrete would open under my feet. My name is Emily, and that was the day the house next door stopped being empty. It was the first week of June, the summer our neighborhood became obsessed with the World Cup. Flags went up on porches. Kids kicked soccer balls into driveways. That was the first mistake, thinking the timing made everything harmless. Matthew moved in with Lauren, their little boy Owen, and Lauren's younger brother Jason. Matthew was around 33 with calm eyes and a careful voice. Jason was closer to my age, loud, restless, always smiling at the wrong moment. My mother, Helen, carried lemon bars across the lawn like we were an official welcoming committee. Lauren opened the door with Owen hiding behind her leg and a soccer ball under his arm. She was friendly, which made me feel worse. There was no villain to hate yet. Then Matthew came out from behind a stack of boxes, and I forgot my hands were full. One lemon bar slid off the tray and landed near his shoe. We both bent down. Our fingers almost touched. He laughed softly and said accidents were the only proof a house had people in it. It was nothing. I remembered it anyway. Jason leaned against the kitchen doorway and watched me like he had already found something loose. Matthew asked my name and whether I was watching the World Cup games with everyone else. I said I was not really into soccer. He looked disappointed for half a second, and I said I could learn. Jason snorted and said he was available for lessons. Matthew nodded toward him and said Jason was single too, if I wanted someone my own age to explain the rules. That was how quickly warmth became public placement. I laughed because I did not know what else to do. Lauren laughed too. My mother looked delighted. Jason winked, and Matthew went back to lifting boxes, innocent of what he had just done to the air in my lungs. From then on, I tried to treat Matthew like a neighbor. I reminded myself he had a wife, a son, and a life that did not include me. But trying not to think about someone is still a way of thinking about them, and Matthew was suddenly everywhere. He mowed the lawn at 6 in the evening. He carried Owen on his shoulders after practice. Sometimes, when he saw me getting the mail, he said my name like it belonged in his mouth more naturally than it should have. I never flirted with him. I need that understood, because later people spoke about me like I had waited outside his bedroom window. I never touched him, but I wanted him. That truth made every normal thing dangerous. The first World Cup watch party happened at their house because Matthew had played soccer in college and became the neighborhood expert. Lauren strung flags across the patio. Owen wore a U.S. jersey with face paint on his cheeks. My parents went because everyone on the block went. I spent an hour choosing a sundress, then changed into jeans because the dress felt too obvious. That should have warned me. Even your closet becomes evidence. Matthew was by the grill when we arrived, wearing a navy shirt with the sleeves pushed up. When he saw me, he said he was glad I came. Not Lauren. Not my mother. Me. I heard that sentence for what it was, nothing. My body heard it as permission. During the game, Owen spilled orange soda across the patio table. I reached for napkins at the same time Matthew did. This time our fingers touched. It lasted less than a second, but Jason saw it from across the deck. His smile changed. Later, when everyone was shouting at a missed goal, Matthew found me near the side gate. He asked if crowds bothered me. I said I just needed air. He leaned beside the fence and told me he understood. He said parties sometimes made him feel like he had to perform being happy for everyone at once. That was the first real conversation we had. He told me he worked in sports rehab. Owen thought the World Cup was a national holiday and slept with a soccer ball beside his bed. I told him I worked at a small insurance office and still lived with my parents because rent was ridiculous. He did not mock me. He said saving money was smarter than pretending for strangers. I should have walked away after that. Instead, I smiled like his approval had taken a chain off my chest. Then Jason appeared with 2 beers and handed one to Matthew, not me. He looked at us and said Lauren was asking where her husband went. He said it lightly, but Matthew straightened at once. For the first time, I understood Jason was not just annoying. He was watching. The next few weeks made it worse. The neighborhood hosted every big game like a holiday. Matthew was always somewhere in the middle, explaining offsides, lifting Owen over lawn chairs, making ordinary afternoons feel like something I had waited for. Lauren and my mother became close quickly. Sometimes Lauren came over while Matthew was at work and talked about marriage like a tiring job she still loved. I would sit there with a sick knot in my stomach. She trusted me. That made my feelings uglier. One Tuesday, she asked if I could help decorate for Owen's 7th birthday, which they were combining with a World Cup watch party. Matthew wanted everything red, white, and blue because Owen was convinced the team would win if the house looked patriotic enough. I said yes before I had time to protect myself. The party was the first place where I crossed a line I could not uncross. Not with Matthew. With myself. Lauren asked me to move framed family photos to the dessert table. One photo showed Matthew holding Owen on a soccer field, sunlight on his face, his smile open and unguarded. It was the kind of picture a wife has the right to keep forever. I stared at it too long. Jason came behind me and said, "Matthew looked good in that one." I almost dropped the frame. He laughed, took a chip from a bowl, and walked away like he had made a casual comment. That was when shame stopped being private. During the party, Owen scraped his knee in the yard. Matthew knelt in front of him and told him brave did not mean pretending something did not hurt. Brave meant telling the truth and getting back up when you were ready. I watched him say that, and something in me folded. It was not just attraction anymore. It was hunger for a life I had no right to imagine. A kitchen with that voice in it. A child being comforted. A man who noticed when someone went quiet by a fence. I wish the worst thing I did that day was want him. When the party was ending, Lauren sent me to grab empty serving dishes from the living room. Everyone else was outside, shouting over another game. The photo of Matthew and Owen was still on the table. I picked it up. I slid the photo out from behind the frame, folded it once, and slipped it into the back pocket of my jeans. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the empty frame back onto the table. The sound was small, but it felt like a gunshot. I looked toward the patio doors. Nobody came in. Or at least I thought nobody had. That night I hid the photo inside an old paperback. I told myself I would put it back somehow. I told myself it was only paper. I told myself a stolen photograph was not the same as touching a marriage. That was the lie that let the next one in. For 2 weeks, I took that photo out every night, looked at it until I felt sick, then put it away and promised God I was done. I felt guilty enough to hate myself, but not obedient enough to stop. Jason started coming by more often. At first he had excuses. He needed to return my mother's cake pan. He wanted to borrow my father's extension cord. Every visit ended with him asking when I was going to let him take me out. I kept saying no in every polite way I knew. He did not hear no. He heard delay. One afternoon, he caught me by the mailbox and said he knew why I would not give him a chance. I felt my face go cold. He leaned closer and said, "Girls like me always thought they were waiting for something better." Then he smiled and added that sometimes better was already taken. I should have told my parents. I should have told Lauren her brother was scaring me. But telling anyone meant opening a door, and behind that door was the photo in my book and the thing I could not say out loud. So I stayed quiet. He had mistaken silence for permission. By late June, I was getting worse. I checked Matthew's driveway before leaving for work. I listened for his voice through the fence. There is no dignified way to describe that kind of longing. It makes a person small in ways they still try to excuse. Then I found the forum. It was almost midnight, and I had been lying in bed with the folded photo under my pillow. I searched for ways to stop wanting someone unavailable. Somehow the internet dragged me into a thread about attraction rituals, love bindings, and superstition dressed up as advice. I did not believe in that kind of thing. But desperation does not need belief. It only needs one sentence that sounds like a door. The post said if a man ate something prepared with your intention, he would start thinking about you within 7 days. It was ridiculous. It was disgusting. It was exactly the kind of thing I would have judged another woman for doing. I read the instructions 3 times anyway. The recipe said to bake something sweet on a Friday at midnight, keep the man's name in mind, say it 7 times after mixing the batter, and use a private item in the preparation. I will not make it prettier than it was. It involved boiling my underwear and using some of that water in the cake batter. I closed my laptop. I opened it again. That was the moment my shame became a plan. The next Friday, my parents went to bed early. I waited until the house was silent. Then I took a saucepan, filled it with water, and stood in our kitchen at midnight doing something I still hate admitting. The kitchen light buzzed. The refrigerator clicked. I kept checking the hallway because every sound felt like my mother coming to ask why the house smelled like chocolate and sin. I made the cake in a glass pan. Chocolate. Because Lauren had once mentioned Matthew liked chocolate before he started cutting sugar. That detail should have stopped me too. But I was thinking like a thief, not like someone who cared about reality. When the batter was ready, I whispered his name 7 times. Matthew. 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 The 7th time, I broke. I put the cake in the oven and sat on the kitchen floor while it baked. I told myself I was not hurting anyone. I told myself it was just superstition. I told myself wanting something impossible did not make me evil if nothing happened. Then the oven timer beeped, and I jumped like I had been caught. The next day there was another watch party at Matthew and Lauren's house. I cut the cake into squares, arranged them on a blue plate, and covered them with plastic wrap. My mother asked if we were bringing dessert. I said yes. I nearly threw it in the trash before we left. Then I saw Matthew in his driveway, lifting a cooler from Lauren's SUV, and the thought came fast. Just 1 bite. That was all the post said. At the party, I placed the cake on the dessert table beside brownies, cookies, and flag-shaped strawberries. Matthew was outside setting up a projector screen. Jason was near the cooler watching me. He asked if I made the cake. I said my mother helped. That was a lie, and he saw it land. Lauren came over, thanked me, and cut a piece for Owen, then one for herself. I waited for Matthew to come inside. He did not. He stayed outside helping Mr. Daniels fix the extension cord. Every minute stretched. At halftime, Matthew finally came in and reached for a paper plate. I stopped breathing. His hand hovered over my cake. Then Lauren called from the kitchen that she had grilled chicken ready for him. No sweets because she was proud of him for sticking to the diet. He laughed, said she was the boss, and walked right past the cake. The room kept moving. I did not. Jason picked up the piece Matthew had almost taken. He looked at me while he bit into it. I felt something drop inside me so sharply that I had to grip the table. He chewed slowly, watching my face. Then he said it was incredible. Too incredible, actually. He asked what I put in it. I said chocolate. He smiled with cake on his fork and said, "No, Emily. I mean, what did you really put in it?" I laughed too loudly. Lauren glanced over. Jason took another bite and told her I was blushing like she had caught me spiking the dessert table. Lauren laughed because she thought he was being Jason. Matthew did not hear. I stood 3 feet from the thing I had done, and the wrong man ate it in front of me. By the end of the night, half the cake was gone. Jason had eaten more than anyone. He made a show of it, telling people he might marry whoever made it. My mother laughed. Lauren told me I should bake more often. I wanted to disappear. For 7 days, I watched Matthew for signs of something that never came. He waved at me once while taking out the trash. He asked my mother if her knee was better. He helped Owen tape a soccer poster to their front window. Nothing changed. Of course nothing changed. Jason changed. The first text came the next morning. He said he was still thinking about my cake. I did not answer. Then he sent another one, asking if I ever baked for men I did not like. I stared at my phone until the screen went dark. I had never given him my number. Lauren had, he said later, because he told her he wanted to ask about a birthday idea for Owen. That was how he always did it. He took something innocent and turned it into access. By Wednesday, he was texting every few hours. Good morning. What are you doing? Are you watching tonight's game? You looked pretty Saturday. I answered once, politely, saying I was busy. He replied with a photo of an empty cake plate and wrote, 7 days, right? My heart stopped. I told myself he meant the cake had lasted 7 days. Then a second message came. Don't worry, I'm patient. That was not flirting. That was a hand closing around a wire. On Friday evening, Jason came to our porch while my parents were inside. I was watering my mother's hanging baskets. He leaned against the railing and said we should go downtown for the public viewing party. I said no. He asked why. I told him I did not want to. He looked toward his house, where Matthew was kicking a ball gently back and forth with Owen. Then he looked back at me and said, You sure you want to keep saying no to the only available man next door? My face burned. I told him to leave. He did not move. He said it was rude to make a man chase after he had already eaten what was made for him. I could barely hear the sprinklers. I asked what he meant. He grinned and said I was smarter than that. Then he leaned closer and whispered that if I wanted a man to eat out of my hand, I should have made sure the right man got the plate. Everything inside me went quiet. He said he had seen the forum open on my laptop through my window, and he had heard me whispering another man's name in the kitchen. I wanted to know how long he had been watching my house, but I could not speak. He said maybe the ritual worked after all, just not on the man I had planned. Then he touched one finger to the porch railing between us and said, You can keep pretending you don't want me, or I can tell Lauren who you do want. That was when I understood the cake had not made him love me. It had given him a weapon. I walked inside without answering and locked the door. He laughed from the porch, not loudly, just enough for me to hear it through the wood. After that, Jason's messages came in waves. One day he was sweet, saying he had only teased me because he liked me. The next day he was ugly, saying a woman who wanted a married man did not get to act pure. Then he would apologize and invite me to watch a game. It was always the same loop: pressure, pity, insult, apology, invitation. Lauren started noticing something. Not the truth, but the shape of it. She asked me one afternoon if Jason had said anything awkward, because he had been talking about me nonstop. She looked amused, like she thought she was helping her brother find love. I said he was not my type. Lauren laughed and said, Maybe your type is the problem. She did not mean Matthew. I heard Matthew anyway. That same night, Jason sent me a picture that knocked the air out of me. It was the photo I had stolen. Not the original exactly. A photo of the photo, lying open on my bed beside the old paperback where I kept it hidden. My room, my blanket, my shame, documented in clean light. I locked my bedroom door and searched everything. The book was still there. The stolen photo was still inside. That meant he had been in my room, or he had taken the picture when I left it out, or he had come close enough to see through my window. None of the options were small. Below the image, he wrote, Lauren asked where this went. Should I help her find it? I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone in my hand, hearing my parents laughing downstairs, and realized my life had become 2 houses separated by 1 strip of grass, and one secret too dirty to explain. I had two choices: keep hiding or start collecting proof. So I did the first smart thing I had done all summer. I stopped deleting. I saved every message. I took screenshots. I recorded one voice note he left after midnight, where he said I owed him one date for every slice of cake he had eaten. He laughed after saying it, but the laugh made it worse. I also checked our porch camera. My father had installed it after packages went missing in the spring. It faced the driveway and part of the side yard between our houses. I opened the app and checked the night Jason claimed he had seen me in the kitchen. Most of it was useless. A cat crossing the driveway. My father taking the trash bins out. Then I found him. At 12:47 a.m., Jason stepped into the narrow, dark space between our houses. He was not taking out trash. He stood near our kitchen window, phone raised. I watched the clip 3 times. The 4th time, I noticed the reflection in the glass. Me in the kitchen, the cake pan. My mouth moving around Matthew's name. That was not shame anymore. That was evidence. I saved the clip. Jason did not know about the camera. He had used my secret to make himself powerful, but he had filmed himself becoming dangerous. For 2 days, I said nothing. That silence made him bolder. The next Saturday, the whole block gathered at Mrs. Parker's house for another World Cup game. I almost did not go, but my mother insisted. Matthew was there with Lauren and Owen. I tried not to look at him. Jason noticed. Halfway through the game, while everyone was distracted by a penalty kick, Jason cornered me near the hallway bathroom. He said he was done waiting. I was going to the downtown viewing party with him that night, and I was going to smile while I did it. I told him no. His face went flat. He said, "Nobody will believe the girl who boiled her underwear for a married man." I felt my throat close. He smiled because he saw the hit land. Then he said Lauren would believe him, Matthew would hate me, and my parents would probably pray over me until Christmas. He said all of it softly, with people cheering in the next room. That was his second mistake. He thought fear would keep me quiet forever. I lifted my phone and told him I had saved the messages. He laughed at first. Then I told him I had the porch camera clip too. The hallway changed around us. For 1 second, Jason looked younger than me. Then he recovered and said I would not show anyone because the clip showed me too. I said maybe. But it also showed him outside my window at midnight with his phone raised, and people might care about that more. He leaned so close, I could see a tiny cut near his lip. He whispered that if I tried to make him look like the creep, he would make sure Matthew knew I had been sleeping with his picture under my pillow. I told him to move. He did, but only because Lauren called his name from the living room. I left Mrs. Parker's house 10 minutes later and went straight home. I was done protecting a secret that had already turned into someone else's weapon. I was not brave. I was cornered. That evening, I made a folder on my phone. Screenshots, voice notes, porch camera clips, the photo of the stolen photo he had sent me. I practiced what I would say to Lauren and my parents. I even practiced what I might say to Matthew, though every version sounded pathetic. Then my phone buzzed. It was Lauren. She wrote, "Can you come over? I need to ask you something before I talk to Matthew." I stared until the words stopped looking wrong. A second message arrived before I could answer. It was a photo of my cake plate on Lauren's kitchen counter, beside the stolen picture of Matthew and Owen. Then came the third. Jason told me everything. I went to Lauren's house with my phone in my hand, and my stomach already folding in on itself. I did not tell my parents where I was going. I could hear my mother watching the game in the living room, clapping whenever the neighbors screamed through the open windows. Outside, the whole street sounded alive. Flags on porches, cars honking from somewhere near the main road, a summer night built for celebration. Lauren opened the door before I knocked. Her face was pale, but not the way I expected. Not furious yet. Worse. Controlled. Her eyes looked wet and sharp at the same time, like she had cried already and decided nobody else would see the rest. Jason stood behind her in the kitchen. He smiled at me. Matthew was not there. That was the first detail that scared me more than yelling would have. Lauren had not called me over to confront me in front of her husband. She had called me before he came home. Jason said, "There she is." I looked at Lauren and said I could explain. She held up one hand, not angry, just stopping me like a traffic signal. On the counter, the stolen photo lay beside my blue cake plate. Jason had arranged them like evidence in a trial he believed he had already won. Then Lauren said very quietly, "Did you take this from my house?" I wanted to lie. My whole body reached for a lie, but the lie had already brought me there. I said yes. Lauren blinked once, and that one blink hurt more than if she had screamed. She asked if I had been obsessed with her husband. I said I had feelings I never should have had, and I never acted on them with Matthew. My voice sounded small. Jason laughed through his nose. He said, "She did more than feelings." Lauren turned to him and he handed her his phone. He had screenshots ready. Not mine. His. He showed her the photo of the photo on my bed. He showed her a cropped clip from my kitchen window, just enough to show me at midnight whispering Matthew's name while baking. He did not show himself outside the window filming it. That was his mistake. He believed shame would erase context. Lauren stared at the phone, then at me. Her mouth trembled for the first time. She asked what the cake was. I could have softened it. I could have called it a stupid superstition, a joke, a desperate mistake. All of that was true, but none of it was clean. So I told her. Not every ugly detail, but enough. I told her I had found a ridiculous ritual online. I told her I had made the cake for Matthew. I told her he never ate it. I told her Jason did. The words came out like broken glass. Every sentence cut me on the way out. Jason clapped once, slow and mean. He said, "At least she's honest when she's trapped." Lauren looked like she might be sick. She asked if Matthew knew. I said no. She asked if I had ever touched him, kissed him, met him alone, anything. I said no, and for once that was the part I could say without shaking. Jason said nobody would believe that. I looked at him then. He had his hands in his pockets, casual, pleased. He had built the room for my humiliation and forgotten that I had walked in with a phone too. I asked Lauren if I could show her something before she decided what I deserved. Jason's smile thinned. Lauren did not answer at first. Then she nodded. I opened the folder with my screenshots. My hands shook so badly I tapped the wrong file twice. Jason stepped toward me and said I was trying to confuse her. Lauren told him not to move. Her voice changed just enough for both of us to hear it. I played the voice note first. His voice filled the kitchen, lazy and smug, saying I owed him one date for every slice of cake he had eaten. Then his laugh came through the speaker, low and intimate, the kind of laugh a person uses when he thinks nobody else will ever hear it. Lauren's eyes moved to him. He said I had cut the audio. I played the next one, where he said nobody would believe the girl who boiled her underwear for a married man. He lunged for the phone. I jerked back, and Lauren stepped between us so fast her shoulder hit his chest. She said, "Why did you say that to her?" Jason's face changed again, not guilty, calculating. He said he was joking. He said I had been leading him on. He said I was embarrassed because I wanted Matthew and got rejected by his brother instead. He said it so smoothly that, for half a second, I saw how he survived in other people's houses. He did not need truth. He needed the first version told loudly enough. Then I opened the porch camera clip. The kitchen went silent except for the muffled roar from the watch party down the street. The clip showed Jason stepping into the dark strip between our houses at 12:47 a.m., phone raised toward my kitchen window. The reflection showed me inside. It was humiliating. It was awful. It also showed him hiding in the dark, filming me through glass. Lauren backed away from him. Jason said the clip proved I was doing exactly what he said. Lauren said it proved he was outside a woman's window after midnight. He tried to laugh. It died in his throat. That was the first time I saw Jason lose the room. Then the front door opened. Matthew came in carrying Owen's soccer cleats in one hand and a plastic grocery bag in the other. He stopped when he saw all three of us standing in the kitchen, the photo on the counter, my face wet, Lauren's body rigid, Jason's mouth half open. Matthew asked what was going on. Nobody answered quickly enough. Jason recovered first. He said I had been stalking Matthew, baking weird things for him, stealing from their house, and trying to twist it around because I was humiliated. It came out fast, almost impressive. He pointed at me and said I had admitted all of it. Matthew looked at me, and the disappointment on his face was so complete, it made me wish Jason had stayed the only problem. I said, "Most of that is true." Lauren whispered my name like she could not believe I would help him bury me. I forced myself to keep going. I said I had stolen the photo. I said I made the cake for him. I said he never ate it, and nothing had ever happened between us. Then I looked at Jason and said he found out and used it to threaten me. Matthew's face moved through confusion, disgust, and something colder. He asked Jason what I meant. Jason said I was unstable. Lauren picked up my phone and played the porch clip again. Matthew watched his brother-in-law stand outside my kitchen window, recording me. He watched it twice. The second time, his jaw tightened so hard I could see it from across the room. Then Lauren played the voice note. Nobody moved. The line about one date for every slice landed in that kitchen like something rotten dropped onto clean tile. Matthew set the cleats on the counter slowly. He asked Jason if there were more messages. Jason said I was obsessed and probably faked them. Lauren told him to unlock his phone. Jason laughed and said she was not his mother. Lauren told him he was living in her house, sleeping in her guest room, eating her food, and using her family as cover to harass the neighbor. Then she said, "Unlock it." That was not gossip anymore. That was the bill coming due. Jason refused. Matthew stepped closer, not touching him, but close enough that Jason stopped smiling. Matthew said if Jason had nothing to hide, he could show the messages. Jason called him a hypocrite and asked if he liked having young women whispering his name at midnight. That sentence hit the room in a different way. Matthew turned to me. I could not look away. I wanted him to defend me from the implication, but I had built the implication with my own hands. He asked if I had really said his name like that. I said yes. His face hardened. For the first time, I understood justice was not going to feel clean. Lauren sat down at the kitchen table. She put both hands over her mouth. Jason looked at her and saw the opening. He said, I was the disease in the neighborhood, not him. He said, I had been staring at Matthew since the day they moved in, that I dressed up for parties, that I stole from their living room, that maybe he should have told everyone sooner. Then he turned to me and said, Nobody will believe you over a family. I heard that sentence and almost folded. Then Lauren stood up. She said, I believe the camera. Jason's mouth opened, but nothing came out. That one sentence cut the leash he thought he had around my throat. Matthew told him to leave the house. Jason said he had nowhere to go. Lauren said he should have thought about that before hiding outside a woman's window and using her shame to chase her. Jason called her dramatic. Matthew took one step closer and told him to pack a bag. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt the room turning toward me. Lauren faced me again. Her eyes were red now. She said Jason was wrong for what he did, but that did not make me innocent. She asked how many times she had sat in my mother's kitchen, talking to me like a friend while I was hiding her husband's picture in my bedroom. I had no answer that would not insult both of us. She said she had trusted me near her child, near her home, near her marriage. She said she had defended me when neighbors joked that Jason was chasing me too hard. She said she had thought I was shy. Then she asked, "Were you ever my friend, or were you just close enough to watch him?" That was the question that did the most damage. I said I was sorry. It sounded useless because it was. Matthew looked away. Not angry now. Worse. Cleanly done with me. Lauren told me to leave. She said she would deal with Jason and Matthew, but she did not want me in her house again. I nodded because any protest would have been another theft. As I stepped toward the door, Jason muttered that I had ruined everything. Lauren turned on him so sharply he backed into the counter. She said he had ruined himself when he decided a woman's mistake gave him ownership of her fear. I left with that sentence following me across the lawn. By the time I reached my porch, my parents were standing in the doorway. My mother had Lauren's text on her phone. I do not know how much Lauren sent her, but it was enough. My father's face looked older than it had that morning. My mother asked me if any of it was true, and I said yes before she finished the question. Inside our kitchen, I told them everything. Not because I wanted mercy, because I had learned what partial truth becomes in the wrong hands. My mother cried quietly. My father did not yell. Somehow that was worse. He sat across from me with his hands folded and asked if Jason had touched me. I said no. He asked if he had threatened me. I showed him the messages. His silence changed. My father had always been gentle in a way that made people underestimate him. That night, he copied every file to his laptop, made a folder with the date, and told me we were calling the police non-emergency line in the morning. I panicked and said I did not want to make it bigger. He looked at me and said, "Emily, it is already bigger. He just made you think hiding it kept it small." That was the first kind thing anyone said that did not excuse me. The next morning, the neighborhood was different. No music, no kids in the street, no shouting about soccer, just curtains moving. Jason's car was gone from Lauren and Matthew's driveway before breakfast. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then my coworker Amanda texted me a screenshot from a community Facebook group. Someone had posted without names about a neighbor girl who tried to spellbind a married man with food and got caught. There were laughing emojis, shocked reactions, comments asking which street, which family, which husband. I knew before I saw the profile picture. Jason had not left quietly. He had thrown a match over his shoulder. He did not mention filming me. He did not mention the threats. He did not mention the messages. He shaped me into exactly what he needed: desperate, dirty, ridiculous, unsafe. Shame travels faster when it is funny. That evening, my father, my mother, and I went to the police station. I showed the officer the messages, the porch camera clip, the voice notes, and the public post. I had to explain the cake. I had to say the words out loud to a stranger under fluorescent lights while my parents sat beside me. The officer did not laugh. That saved me in a way I still remember. He said my behavior was embarrassing and wrong, but Jason's behavior was separate. Filming through a window, threatening exposure to coerced dates, and posting identifying rumors could all matter. He told me not to contact Jason, not to respond publicly, and to preserve everything. The real break came during the quarterfinal watch party at the community center. At 8:13 p.m., Lauren called me. I almost did not answer. When I did, she did not say hello. She said Jason was there. My hand went cold. She said he had shown up at the community center after being told to stay away, acting wounded, telling people Matthew had thrown him out because Lauren was jealous, and I had seduced the whole family into chaos. He was drunk enough to be loud and sober enough to aim. Then he said the wrong thing in front of the wrong person. He told Mrs. Parker that he had proof I had been whispering Matthew's name in my kitchen, because he saw it himself. Mrs. Parker asked how he saw inside my kitchen at midnight. The room heard the question. Jason tried to laugh it off. Lauren said that was when Matthew asked him, in front of everyone, how many times he had watched women through windows before. I sat on my bed, barely breathing. Lauren said Jason got ugly fast. He called Matthew weak. He called Lauren ungrateful. Then he pointed at my parents and said their daughter was lucky he had not posted the video. My father stood up. Lauren said he did not shout. He just asked Jason if he wanted to repeat that sentence while everyone was recording. And because people love scandal more than soccer, half the room already had phones out. Jason realized it too late. That was the moment the lie stopped belonging to him. Matthew told the room Jason had been removed from their house for harassing me and filming through my window. Lauren confirmed it. She did not defend me. She did not soften what I did. She said I had made a terrible, humiliating mistake, but Jason used it to threaten and control me. Then she said, in front of the same neighbors who had been whispering for days, "A woman's shame is not permission." Lauren's voice cracked when she said it. That detail broke me. Jason tried to leave. Someone had already called the police because Jason had been warned not to contact or threaten me. By the time he reached the parking lot, an officer was there. He was not dragged away dramatically. Real life does not always give you that. He was questioned beside a row of minivans while people pretended not to watch and absolutely watched. That was enough. By morning, Jason had deleted his post. By noon, Lauren posted one sentence in the same community group. She wrote that rumors about her family had been incomplete, that harassment and illegal recording were involved, and that anyone spreading identifying details about a private police matter could expect to be named in the report. No apology to me. No forgiveness. Just a line drawn in public. It worked. Jason moved out of state to stay with an uncle. At least that is what Lauren told my mother. The police report did not turn into some dramatic courtroom scene. He got warned, documented, and scared. His sister cut him off. Matthew changed the locks. For someone like Jason, losing the audience was the punishment. But my punishment stayed too. Matthew came to our house one evening a week later. I saw him through the porch camera before the doorbell rang, standing under the yellow porch light with his hands in his pockets. Then I opened the door and saw his face. He was not there to love me. He was there to close the door correctly. He asked if we could talk on the porch. I said yes. My father stayed inside but did not move far from the living room. Matthew looked tired, not angry in the easy way. Tired in the way people look when their home has become a place they have to repair. He said he was sorry Jason threatened me. He said nobody deserved to be watched or coerced like that. I nodded, and tears started before I could stop them. Then he said what I already knew was coming. He said what I did to Lauren was still a betrayal. He said stealing the photo, making the cake, hiding feelings while accepting her friendship. All of it had put poison under ordinary neighborly trust. He said he believed nothing happened between us, but belief did not erase damage. I wanted to say I loved him. The sentence rose in me like an old reflex. I swallowed it. That was the line I finally did not cross. Instead, I said I was sorry for bringing his name into something ugly. I said Lauren had been kinder to me than I deserved, even when she was furious. I said I would stay away from both of them. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, Lauren was not kind. She was principled. There was a difference. That sentence stayed because it was true. Before he left, he handed me something in a white envelope. Inside was the stolen photo, flattened but still creased down the center. I had forgotten Lauren still had it. Matthew said Lauren wanted me to return it myself. The next afternoon, I walked to their house and knocked with the envelope in both hands. Lauren opened the door. She did not invite me in. I did not expect her to. I handed her the photo and said I was sorry for taking something that belonged to her family. She looked at the envelope for a moment before taking it. Owen laughed somewhere inside the house, and the sound hurt in a simple, final way. Lauren said, "I hope you get help before wanting turns you into someone worse." There was no cruelty in it. That made it harder to hate. I said I would. She nodded once and closed the door. For months, I flinched when I saw Lauren's car. I deleted the forum from my browser history, then realized deletion was not the same as change. So I went to counseling. Week by week, I learned the part I had tried to skip. Jason had exploited me, but he did not create the emptiness he found. He did not make me steal the photo. He did not make me bake the cake. He did not make me confuse longing with destiny. That was my work to face. Lauren and Matthew stayed next door for almost a year. We did not become friendly again. We became civil in the distant way people are when they share a sidewalk and a scar. If Owen's ball rolled into our yard, my father returned it. If Lauren saw my mother at the grocery store, they spoke for a minute and moved on. Matthew did not look at me unless he had to. At first, that rejection felt like the final punishment. Then, slowly, it became the thing that saved me from reopening the wound. Every time he chose distance, reality stayed where fantasy used to live. The last time I saw him clearly was the following spring. Their house had a sold sign in the yard. Moving boxes were stacked near the garage, just like the first day. Owen was older, taller, kicking a soccer ball against the curb. Lauren carried a lamp to the car. Matthew came out holding the framed photo of him and Owen. He saw me standing by our porch. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he gave me a small nod. Not warm, not cruel, just human. I nodded back. Lauren came beside him, saw me, and put one hand on the frame. Not dramatically, not possessively, just enough to remind me that some things belonged where they belonged. They drove away 2 hours later. I cried when their truck turned the corner. But it was not the desperate kind, begging life to become something else. It was grief, with its feet on the ground. Jason never contacted me again. I heard once, through a neighbor who pretended she was not gossiping, that he had lost a job after another woman complained about him making threats. I do not know if that is true. I did not chase the story. That was how I knew something had changed. For a long time, I believed my worst punishment was that Matthew never loved me. Then I thought it was the public shame. Then I thought it was Lauren's face when she realized I had accepted her friendship while wanting her husband. Now I think the punishment was simpler. I had to live with the fact that my desire made me careless, and my carelessness gave a cruel man a key. The only mercy is that I finally took the key back. I never became the woman in that forum post. I never became Jason's version of me either. But I did become someone who had to learn, in the most humiliating way possible, that wanting someone does not make them yours. Pain does not excuse invasion, and shame only grows teeth when you keep feeding it in the dark. Sometimes people ask if I believe the ritual worked because Jason became obsessed after eating the cake. No. I believe he saw a secret and called it opportunity. I believe Lauren saw the truth and chose principle over revenge. I believe Matthew saw enough to stay away, and he was right. And I believe the clearest answer I ever got from that whole ugly summer was the one I hated most. He was never mine. What would you do in this situation? Be honest. Or did this remind you of someone? Tell me in the comments. And if this made you think about your own relationship, I left something in the description that can help you build something stronger. Subscribe if you want more stories like this every day, and share this with someone who needs to hear this story.